So, okay. What do you think will happen to McCree if he loses his flashbang? They said a PvP stream, they're considering it. I think McCree, like there's a lot of heroes that I see that are relatively static. I mean, I guess it depends on map map structure and map construction, but we might see something like McCree get a little bit more mobility. Same kind of thing with May, maybe. I think in general, we've seen most new Overwatch heroes, whether they be Moira, heck, even Brig, but the real, like Moira, Ashe, Echo, Wrecking Ball, have mobility or range options. So with McCree, who's relatively mid-range, and I think that's going to stay, I don't think you're going to see a range increase with him. You might see more utility, or you might see a little bit more mobility. That's what I expect. I don't expect his range to change. You might see more mobility from him though. But I'm not sure what that would look like. I do think that if he loses his flashbang, I think you might see something like utility of some other type, because he's a relatively blasé hero as it is. He's fun, but he's very vanilla in his design. So if you took away his flash, he would be pretty dull. More dull than he is now. So I feel like we might see some form of utility. Okay. I really enjoy your videos and kill boxes, Coach Breastwater. Super content, always keep it up. Thank you. Can you explain how fight initiation flow strategy works for attackers, the team that doesn't currently have objective control? The kill box concept is great, but overall it's definitely much easier to understand and play as defenders when you have objective control. Basically, so like we talked about in the team review we just did, the attackers have to walk into a kill box. So what attackers do is it's almost like there's different ways of looking at it, okay? One way is that there's a monster under your bed, okay? Here's your bed, okay? And here's your bed, okay? And you've got like, this is a really boring bed, okay? Here's your headboard if that's what you have, and there you are, and there you are, okay? You could stick your toe off the floor and touch the floor, and the monster goes, and grabs, and you like pull your foot back. And by doing that, the monster's exposed himself and you can't escape properly. So one of the ways of beating kill boxes is simply to bait, right? Not always the play, but you can bait, right? You walk in and then out. And it baits the enemy team to blow cooldowns. And then that allows you to, after those cooldowns are used, to actually take space, because they didn't do anything with those cooldowns, okay? The other thing you can do is walk into choke, and as you're walking into choke, to send angle clear here, and just to basically send resources off to control flanks, so that if they do punish the kill box, you have flanks that can punish them as they push in, right? So the way to look at it is like, this is our kill box right here, okay? Defenders are all set to punish the kill box, right? Oh yeah, we're all set up, right? So what do attackers do? They walk in, but they don't walk in like this, they walk in like this. So that the team blue isn't all focused on punishing kill box, they're also distracted by this flank and by this flank and things like this. Now, team yellow is still at a disadvantage, but it's less of a disadvantage. The other thing you'd see, especially in dive comps, is you'll see team yellow, they won't actually walk in the kill box at all. At least their core won't. What they'll do is they'll walk up, kind of play passive, send two people this way, and heavily support them to go in the flank. And team blue's like, okay, well, okay, they're getting support. It's like it's distracting. It's like, which one do we go through? And so what you do is you support your flank going in. Now, let's actually give you an example of this. What you could think of this as is your team is on Temple of Anubis, right? And here's the choke, okay? Here's a choke, and you are on attack, right? And here's the high ground up here. And you know the little side here, and here's the mega health pack, all this kind of stuff, right? Just a terrible drawing, but you guys get the idea, okay? Now, what you would not do is just go, we're just gonna run it down mid. What you can do though is say, you know what? Kree, we're gonna give you Harmony Orb, I'm gonna give you a little shield, and I want you to do this. Kree Brig, go in here. Kree Sigma, go in here, right? And then once you guys get in here safely, we're gonna say 3, 2, 1. Then our Kree Sigma are gonna peek out here, and then our monkey's gonna die from main. And because now we actually have pincers, this distraction will take pressure off of the monkey and will provide actual kill threat on the enemy team. But you have to set this up first. You kind of see what I'm saying? Your monkey plays really passive, just throws on a bubble. You just let them get these guys get in. You kind of see what I'm saying? Or you might say, we're going to walk through the choke and we're going to send our Tracer triple blinking up this way. And so she gets all the way behind. She takes the Mega. She says, all right, I'm ready for you guys to dive. And then she double blinks onto here and gets onto the platform and threatens them from here when your Reinhardt pushes to the choke or when your Winston dives. Or you rotate through here and you get set up in here as 4, as 5. And you're like, oh, we're going to have to push through this choke into a Junkrat. Gross. But what you actually have is you have a Widowmaker hiding behind here. And then as you guys push to the choke, your Widowmaker grapples up the high ground and she pushes here. So attackers have to be creative. They have to be patient. They have to set things up. Sometimes it takes a little bit more time and a little bit more patience. And defenders always have a counterplay to it, right? It's just up to defenders to respond correctly. And, 45% of the time, defenders won't respond correctly and you lose a team fight or they lose an advantage. So attackers have to find ways of clearing flanks, clearing angles, baiting engages, setting up, utilizing a clear as 5 while one of their angles sits on main and hides, that kind of thing. It's kind of a hard concept to explain, but it's like finding ways of working around your disadvantage. What? Oh gosh, copy pasta. I'm trying to become a coach, and right now I feel like my actual game knowledge is help, but I promise actually coaching a team and understanding priorities for what a team is to work on and actually articulate teaching them and coaching what I know. How to get better at this is just experience of coaching, videos to watch, books to read. I would recommend Coach Sexy. He's got some Catch Sexy. Coach Sexy has some good videos on this. And I would recommend looking at my AMA. I did an AMA on coaching when I retired from professional Overwatch coaching. Okay, I would recommend that. Trying to think if there's any other resources. I would also recommend the Baggins Hammer Time that I did not too long ago. These are all good resources for you to kind of understand like how to prioritize, how to simplify. And then I'd start with there and then I'd look up books and do your own research. Like it took me a long time. It took me a long time to where I was confident in my coaching, and I'm still learning a lot. Like every single week, I'm learning more and more and more about coaching. So be patient, but yeah, a lot of it's just reps. It's conscious reps. It's just conscious reps. But that would probably give you a good start. There's far more Overwatch coaching resources out now than there was when I first started. So but yeah, just be patient, challenge yourself, set goals for yourself like you're actually trying to improve at playing the game, and yeah, go from there. Treat it like improving at any other skill. Don't just assume it's going to get better. Philly Ops, Rialto, Nixel versus Philly. Philly Ops for attack, Reaper, Kree, Brig versus Nixel going for Kree, Echo, Mercy, D.Va, Winston, on a mirror. Fast rotates inside. So maybe they're thinking the Reaper is like, you guys know the first choke on Rialto on the other side of the bridge, like once you turn into the courtyards, there's a lot of like fast rotates and there's a lot of like hidden flanks that Reaper can get value out of. He can TP across to the ops to high ground where a lot of Widows play or like a lot of flex supports play. So the Kree, I'm not gonna lie to you, the Kree makes sense, but the Reaper is really weird. But it could work. It can clear high grounds. There is a lot of hiding and flanking locations, so it's not terrible. It is weird though. It is weird. And you also have to keep in mind that if you're playing like more of a brawly style dive, your options are kind of limited because Sombra and Tracer are both banned. So they're probably making the best of the situation, being like, hey, we want to play like a faster tempo, short range dive, and we don't really have another DPS who can play besides Reaper. What is the best way to consistently track and eat on a nades D.Va? I find myself able to eat most abilities, but I struggle very hard with Onions because they come from the backline and I'm able to see them when come in. Well, it could be that your positioning is not great. Like, are you set up properly in an angle to where you can see the backline or see the Ana? The timing of the nades is something that you also need to pay attention to. So you need to think, if you're the enemy Ana, when is the best time to land a big nade that's going to hurt your team? Usually it's mid-fight, right? So those are kind of when you need to be looking for the nades. And then the third thing is that you're just not going to eat every single nade, right? Even the best miss a lot of nades. So I would work at that. Work in your positioning, look at your positioning. Can I be positioned better to where I can eat these easier? Think about the timing of when the Ana is going to be landing those nades, and then also your vision. So like mid-fight vision, sometimes as D.Va, you're not actually trained on what you're shooting. Sometimes you're trained on something else that you need to be eating so that you can quickly flick to it. So that's another thing you can be doing. So like as D.Va, your damage, like if you're just shooting like shield or shooting tanks, right? You don't need to be hard focused on tracking. You just kind of like put your crosshair on it. I see Ana, you know, and flick, right? And that's something that can help you with nades. And the Beginner's Trials match of Funi versus Raspberry Racers. Raspberry Racers play Ball, D.Va, Ashe, Tracer, Briggs in, while Funi played Double Bull, Ashe, Tracer. I was really surprised they didn't swap Lethal to McCree instead, because Slayton was just dying constantly. What do you make of this? They played Lee Chang, were able to pick Jungle Sky. Well, the Ashe is better in the longer sightlines. And remember, this composition is not about peeling the dive off. So the McCree does provide some peel, but you need to actually punish the Winston, the Zarya, and so on, the Tracer, and so on, before they dive. Otherwise, you're not going to peel off this comp. Like, Briggs in doesn't survive dives. It just doesn't. Especially not anymore. And I know that's a hot take. Be like, what? What are you talking about? Well, of course they provide some peel. But they, if a bubbled monkey lands on your Briggs in, and there's a Tracer there too, they're both dead. 100% of the time, without exception. Unless they have an ultimate, like a Trance or Rally. They're dead. There's nothing you can do. Flashbang's not going to change that. So with the Ashes is saying that, like, you're never going to be able to dive at full HP. I'm going to prevent you from diving, discourage you from diving, harass you before you dive better, because I have a better range. I can aggressively reposition with my coach gun. And obviously Bob is a better ultimate than High Noon in most circumstances. I'm not saying it's good, because you would want to play Ashe on longer sightline maps where she can actually get value compared to a McCree. But just saying, oh, we're dying to dive, let's just swap McCree, is not the answer. Thank you. Thank you for the hydrate. The Scrim Workshop code includes a bunch of stats by the corner. My question is, how much do you use these stats involved during your time coaching? Here's the deal. I have never used stats during my coaching. I have not in the past found them particularly useful. That being said, the fact that it actually says things like total damage done, total healing done, things like that, I need to do a better job keeping an eye on them. I don't think that I would ever use them when it came to trialing. Like, I saw a tweet from a certain pro player, I won't say who said something like along the lines of, how did we live before scrim lobbies when we were trialing players? Did we just say like, oh yeah, we like you, we're gonna pick you? And I was like flabbergasted. I'm like, what do you mean? Look at their POVs. Like, don't judge off of stats. Like, study their player. Like, what are you talking about? That being said, I do think that right now the fact that the stats are literally packaged and just given to you instantly, I think it is worth looking at. I think it might be because, like, for right now in the example in the mid scrim, I'm focused on more like team play aspects. But if I look in the top left and I look at the top right and I say my Ashe has half the damage, I need to figure out why. I'm not going to be screaming at my Ashe and assuming my Ashe is underperforming, but I'm going to be looking at the VOD afterwards and figuring out why that was happening. So I guess the way I've always looked at stats, even when I was like plat, diamond coaching, whatever, is stats don't matter unless something really, really bad or really, really good. In other words, if you're playing a ranked game and you end up with 0 deaths, or 2 deaths, wow, good job. If you play a ranked game and you end up with like 14 deaths or 15 deaths, something's wrong. Or you've got, you know, like I said, in the scrim thing, there's somebody has like 50, 60, 70% more damage or more healing than the other guy. That deserves a little bit of investigation. But unless it's a huge discrepancy, I just don't care. Can you give examples of times where these stats was actually useful in coaching a player team? I can give you none, because in the past, the ways of harvesting them were super inefficient. Most analysts that I work with were really, really just not helpful at all. They had no idea how to translate or interpret stats at all. So they would just spit numbers at me, and I'm like, okay, I don't know what this means. I don't know how to use this. And so I never, ever, ever found value out of analysis or analysts. Maybe that changes now. Stats overrated, but there is some value in it. That's the TLDR. I've heard a thing like defenders decide where the fight happens, attackers decide when the fight happens. Is that accurate? It's an oversimplification, because if attackers can rotate properly, they can change how defenders respond. Remember, we just discussed it earlier about how like attackers can rotate and flip. They could change where the fight happens for sure. And defenders can also proactively just jump in and push their advantage too soon. But it's cute. It makes sense. I'm not here to pick on something stupid like that. Sure. Whenever I try to play Winston, look for good dive targets. Whenever they have Mercy, I completely feel my brains out. No matter if I do it, so I get half HP. My bow breaks, and the Mercy heals them more than I can damage, and I either die or get low HP. I think it's playing wrong with McCree, but I'm going to steal with the Mercy flies on everything in the day. I mean, Mercy is actually pretty trash against Winston because they can't really stop you from diving. The value of your dive isn't from you actually killing a target. It's from you pressuring the enemy team, baiting a lot of resources, and then surviving. And while that's happening, your team is getting value elsewhere. If you're able to get a kill as Winston, it's either because you had a great dive or because your teammates were doing something that was enabling you. In other words, they were distracting the Mercy elsewhere that allowed you to get the kill here. So the first thing I would ask is, well, the first thing I would say is the fact that it's Mercy changes absolutely nothing. There's nothing special that you have to do with Mercy whatsoever at all. The only thing I can maybe say is you can force, like, look for Guardian Angel as an impetus to die, but not even that. No, like, there's nothing about Mercy outside of maybe primal raging, looking to like guard bodies with primal rage that affects your play at all. If you're dying if you're dying as Winston when your dives, or you're getting lower value when playing Winston into Mercy, then you just aren't playing low value Winston. It wouldn't change if they were on Ana, Moira, Brick. It doesn't change. Mercy is one of your easier matchups. So you're looking at the wrong thing. Stop looking at the Mercy. Start looking at your positioning, who you're diving, when you're diving, and work from there. Because it's Mercy doesn't. There's nothing that's fun. This isn't like a Brig whip shot or Reaper or Roadhog or things that you have to play around. No, it's Mercy. It's Mercy. Any recommendations? Oh, hey, thanks for the sub, mate. Appreciate it, Alden. Thank you. All right. Thank you again. Any recommendations for constructing a resume of some sort for trying to get on a team? I'm gunning for University out, but they're trying to get in. For trying to pick up a main tank. I mean, previous experience. Recommendations. So, like, if you can, like, get written recommendations, references from people that you have worked with that have good experience with you, gameplay examples, and there's a million resume formats out there that you can do, and it doesn't even have to be complicated. It can be super simple, and then maybe a simple statement of your gameplay philosophy, like, I'm a hard worker, I really believe in the ranked grind, and I'm a good commer, or like whatever. And that's optional. You don't have to do that. But that would be good start as construction as a resume. I want to play 5 hit-scan heroes. Wow. I understand that's a lot, so I pick out 2 for a limited time and move on to the next 2. Right now I'm thinking 2 weeks to say Ashe Tracer, then move on to like Widow Tracer. Do you think this could work? I mean, it's not going to work that great because you're going to get good at heroes and then you're going to drop the heroes and then you're going to drop rank picking up Widow who you haven't played in 3 weeks. So, I mean, it's fine as long as you're okay with your SR doing this, which is probably going to be the case. It might not, but it's probably going to be the case. I mean, if you're able to play the game a lot, then, I mean, I don't know. Like, basically, this is going to happen. If you're gonna go 2 heroes, 2 heroes, 2 heroes, 2 heroes, 2 heroes, 2 heroes, your SR is going to do this. If you play all 5 heroes at the same time, your SR is going to do this. Because you're going to be kind of mediocre at everything. You're gonna do like for a visual example, this is what it's going to look like. So do you want to go for those peaks so you can feel good about yourself, but then also drop down to like low silver, or when you pick up your Widowmaker, or do you just want to be consistently mediocre? I don't know. You tell me, because that's theoretically what should happen, assuming everything else is the same. Other counters to grab D.Va Bomb. I answered this one already in Ask Community. I'm gonna actually pull this up so I don't have to answer it again, just in case there's anybody in chat who is interested in this question, because it's a good question. I didn't realize this was also an Ask Spilo. Bomb enemy grabs, save bubbles, split angles distance, abuse beat, rally advantage to rush Zarya and force heat on graph, force aggro an enemy Ryan to force projected bubble, then whip shot Lucy boop his pin in the graph. And if any of that seems like, well, what? Sorry. Read the question again and you'll get it. Okay. I had this discussion with my collegiate team recently and we never really came to a solution. And double mirror, is it always at least okay for a monkey to counter dive their backline when their monkey dives ours? Yes. I think defaulting to that 90% of the time is fine because he gets more value out of pressuring their backlane and defending against, nades, dynamites, cutting off their healing, cutting off their LOS, than he does bubbling off his own backline and zapping enemy monkey. That's not a lot of value. As a Zarya bubble, should I focus on peeling for our backline, or if I'm close enough, would it be more impactful to follow the monkey trying to confirm kills? Generally, you can peel your own backline, and then because it's easier for you to shoot enemy monkey than it is for you to shoot enemy backline. But a lot of that depends on your positioning. If you guys are already set in high ground positioning and the enemy team walks, like the enemy backline is accessible with like your right clicks and your high charge, go for it. A lot of this question is positional dependent, right? Whether you can even reach backline, whether there's a monkey inside of you, the status of your bubbles, things like that. Can anyone explain to me the monkey D.Va brawl, the shock and fuel we're playing today? How would you play it in the mirror? Is this the Reaper Echo stuff, chat? Can anybody tell me if this is just was this the Moira comp? Was this the Moira comp? I didn't see this game. Basically, it's simple. In the mirror, well, in non-mirror, you're gonna dive, short dives while taking as little damage as possible. Your Reaper's gonna go in with your team, or your Reaper is going to TP and pincer from behind, and then your Echo is gonna try and set up a pincer without taking damage, and then fly in at this angle here. Moira, Lucio, Winston-D.Va usually come in all at the same angle. Sometimes your Winston starts on an off angle if he's able to safely, similarly to double bubble. Reaper pincer, Echo pincer, etc. In the mirror, you have Winston walks in, gets matrixed, then bubbles. Moira, Lucio, pocketing Winston. Lucio can be booping the enemy Winston away, booping the Reaper away, etc. Echo flies on a slight off angle and shoots. Reaper can either be inside of his tanks, but usually also will take a very short sight-lighted sightline and swing wide and put pressure here. So if it was looking like this, it's Winston, D.Va, Moira, Lucio, Echo, Reaper. Slight off angles because your range healing is extremely limited, putting pressure at the same time as your monkey. The timing is everything. Your monkey goes in for a trade, you matrix in so that he's able to zap without using bubble. You drop your matrix, about half your matrix. You drop your bubble. You have ingles from your Reaper and Echo. Your Lucio is either denying the enemy Reaper or booping the enemy monkey or whatever in, and you just ult trade. It's all about timing, target focus, and good cooldown usage. The reason why I hate this mirror is it's insanely micro focused. If your D.Va is sloppy with matrix usage, it's very hard for you to win neutrals. If your Reaper wastes shift, it's very hard for you to win neutrals because your Reaper has to play very passive. If your Moira throws the wrong orb, your Lucio messes up amp, it's very hard to win neutrals. So very, 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 very micro, and because it's so fast paced a lot of time or so chaotic, it's hard to see how teams are winning team fights. It's very hard to see. You have to look at it a lot more carefully, which is why as a like a comp to watch, it's terrible. That's my biased opinion, but I just think objectively it's just a bad comp for it to be meta, at least for very long. It's extremely dull, very microcentric, very hard to see, and not to mention here is like I find Moira and Reaper get really old watching really fast. In what situations do you pick Zarya, Sigma, and D.Va over the other two? Longer sightlines, shorter sightlines, high grounds. That's the easiest way I can describe it. Brawl dive is not poggers. Brawl is my least favorite meta. My least favorite meta, and Brawl dive is the worst of both worlds. The pro level, what factors can contribute to players making the same macro mistakes consistently, particularly once it seems fairly fundamental? Communicational confidence thing. I've had teams before where they were making consistent fundamental macro errors because there was a lack of trust between players that caused one player to get irate and tell the other player that they needed to play this certain way, and they know it's not optimal, but they're like, I guess it's the only way that we're going to win with this, and so they end up making the worst decision because they think that's the only way they can make it work. Or they tried what was the right way and it didn't work, so they quit, but it wasn't executed properly. It's like saying, I tried doing push-ups, but I just hurt my shoulder because they were doing push-ups like this, you know? So then well, I know that's healthy, but it just doesn't work for me for whatever reason, and they just let it go. And that's usually a failure on coaching. In terms of flanker engaging too early, it's kind of hard to say. Are there any reasons that apart from the coaches falling to address that, prioritize something else? Like I said, internal stuff can be a lot of the issues that where you see like teams failing, continually failing. Could be confidence, could be ignorance as well. Because to be honest with you, Some of the concepts that we talk about in here, this is going to sound really egotistical, but some of the concepts that we talk about in here are pretty far-fetched, not far-fetched, but pretty in-depth and pretty detailed, and are not only hard to execute consistently, but also sometimes I don't think every single Overwatch League player is on the same page, like with the priority of this, if that makes sense. In other words, I guarantee you there are some Overwatch League players that are dumber than some of you guys in chat. And that's not a compliment to, not an insult to them, but it's a compliment to you guys. I think so if you see things that are like, why are they doing this? Well, maybe they don't know. Maybe it's really hard in the middle of a moment, right? I mean, that's hard to really say. Did you often see players continue to make fundamentals after coaching? I've seen it happen. Yep. Players continue to make mistakes over and over again. Either your coaching is wrong or the players just doesn't care. There have been players in the past that I've worked with who continued to make errors over and over again, and that was because my coaching wasn't as good as it should have been. That was absolutely a problem that I had, and I had to work on it. But there have also been players where they made mistakes over and over again because they just didn't care enough or they didn't put in the effort required. And those are players that would either get kicked off of teams or I chose to not work with them anymore. If you're not putting in the effort to improve and you're not following advice, if you're not following feedback or making an effort to, it's no longer a question of my ability to coach you. It's more a question of your effort, your willingness. And those players will never reach Overwatch League. They'll never go anywhere. And I can think of a couple off the top of my head. No naming names. How long does it take pro players to adjust their playstyle in response? It depends. Sometimes it can be instantaneous. Sometimes it takes time. Depends on the player. Depends on the situation. Is a Discord link not working? Can somebody else try it? Like chat, remind me. Don't let me forget. I will fix it, Butter. Sorry, mate. Hey, Spilo, first of all, thanks for all the knowledge you've given since I started following you. You're welcome, mate. Appreciate the sub. At a high-level team where players are like 4.5, what are the ways to encourage and develop one mutual playstyle as a team? How do you approach this, and what are your thoughts and methods, things? I mean, the team just has to understand that, like, if we don't have a mutual one playstyle as a team, or we're not all on the same page about when to change it, when to leave it the same, then you're gonna lose. Like, players have to understand, if you're not all on the same page, you're gonna lose. That's just it. You're gonna lose. It's better to play a worse fundamental playstyle than it is to have different ideas about what to do and end up being on two different pages at once. And until players recognize that, you can't. Like, I have players that still think that changing rosters every single week is the best way, like getting a better player is the best way to improve. So eventually, when you can point out or think about like look guys, like, we're not on the same page, or like, this is messing us up, we need to figure this out. When they get burned enough, they will realize that, hey, it's not always great or crucial for us to be perfectly executing at the right thing or having the perfect playstyle. It's more important for us to be on the same page. So, like, I mean, I can talk about that. I can point out as a coach the importance of that and give good examples of that. But the ways to encourage and develop the playstyle are to know that it's important. And then you just have to sit there and have the conversation and figure out what we need to do. You know what I'm saying? Developing the playstyle, encouraging the playstyle is just talking and figuring it out. But getting to that point means the players have to understand how important it is. It's like, how do I get in shape, coach? Well, do you want to get in shape? Is it that important to you? Because if it is, you'll figure it out. Right? You will figure it out. Just depends on how important it is to you. How can you teach players to come up with solutions? To me, it's always common sense. I can never touch even the surface of all the sort of solutions. But why is one particularly as good? Practice. Go and review. What could we have done in this team fight? How do we win this team fight? Go in scrims. Guys, I want every single team fight to be winnable. You guys need to figure out what we're going to be doing to win every single team fight. That should be the goal. No dry fights, win every single team fight. How are you going to do what are you going to do each and every single situation to win the team fight? Do you have any specific ways of implementing those playstyles? No, that's too vague of a question. No, sorry, that's too vague of a question. Talk about it, say we're going to try this and do this in this circumstance, and then just rep it out. In practice and review, practice and scrims. What do we do in this? One of the things that's been like a pet peeve for me recently is teams that ult track and then do nothing with the information from the ult tracking and then just autopilot. So for a solution in that situation, we track that they have a support ult advantage. Okay, how do we win then? Don't just play normally. Think, okay, well, they're going to be doing this if we do this, so we need to try this instead, right? How can you teach? What does a mental coach do? Can die? What? Mental coach, basically focusing on making sure the team is like in good spirits, making sure the team is working hard, making sure the team is focused, making sure we're prioritizing the right things. To be honest with you, I've kind of taken over head coach duties recently, not this week. This week I've been way too busy with IRL duties, but with previously that I was taking over some of like the leadership duties with Exoblivione, with Alex's departure. And right now Connor is kind of taking over head coach duties. So it's not really, I just want to be mental coach because when I first came on to Exoblivione, I was helping them with some confidence issues. I was helping them with some basic playstyle issues. I was helping them with some internal conflict that I was taking charge and like fixing. We had some roster situations and some struggles, and I was helping them with that. That was my thing. I don't know what a mental coach is. I could just tell you what I did. That's what I did. But right now, for example, I'm too busy. I'm about to go on break, so Connor has been stepping up and helping out a lot. So it's just what the team needs. It's not so much the title; it means a whole lot. Because I was like, it could be like a performance coach, mental coach. I was like, I don't really care. Mental coach sounded cool. How do you think this week if I were to make a Torb guy, what would the key bits to include? Oh my gosh, you're not doing this to me. Turret off angles. Turret off angles is either a burglar alarm or as an off angle threat. Make sure that it's actually putting pressure when the enemy team actually commits to a fight. Don't like avoid it being breakable early. It's really, 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 really important. Overload timing. So overload is either two uses. It's either used as a defensive cooldown that you can utilize when you're being pressured, dove, or dueling. Or it could be used as extra pressure. So if the enemy team is making an aggressive rotate or pushing into your team and you know that you're not going to need it as a defensive cooldown anytime in the next 5-10 seconds, press the E so you, right? So you can smack them in the mouth because you do a lot more damage when you're overloaded. I think positioning, obviously corner cover, things like that, little things like angles and things like that with Torbjorn are important. But I think that makes that Torbjorn very unique is his range variety. In other words, there is no one range to play with Torb. It's completely dependent on the map, completely dependent on the enemy composition, and really your composition as well. For example, if I'm playing Torb into snipers, I'm playing hyper short angles and basically playing to 1v1 them at close ranges if I can. If I'm playing Torb against like full dive, you're playing a spam hero. You're playing essentially a spam hero at long range. So he's a very flexible hero when it comes to range, a little bit like McCree. Ultimate usage is 100% mid-fight, 100% mid-fight. It doesn't have to be like, okay, we've already lost somebody, but like the fight commits, 3, 2, 1, Torbolt right there. Because it is very easy to kite out, very easy to play around, and it takes a little bit of setup, so you don't want to wait too long. Trying to think anything else. I mean, that's basically it. Those are the big ones. Adjust your positioning based off enemy comp. Overload is either an early pressure ult cooldown. I think that would be a good start. That would be a really good start. I think the rest of it you'll be able to fill out or answer on your own. No, Kitty. Oh no, I can't have you there. She's how am I so good looking? Well, I would say genetics, but that would be a lie. Sheer effort. Sheer effort. Just magical like that. What are we talking about? Double shield is way more fun to watch. I know it's a hot take, but the DPS and BAP Zen play is way more interesting to me. Like double shield Reaper Doom was pretty sleeper, but like I find double shield way more fun to watch, especially with how breakable shields are. There's like a lot more pop-off potential. That's like more engaging to watch. Hi, sweet girl. Okay. The problem with McCree is a 25 HP. I don't know why they don't. No. I mean, this isn't really a question, so I'm gonna delete it. But the problem with McCree is not the 225 HP. 225 HP is the best thing that could have happened to McCree because it actually put him in the role where he was supposed to be, which was somewhat anti-dive mid-range duelist. The problem with McCree right now is his flashbang, radius or whatever, and fan the hammer. If you nerf either of those things, I find fan the hammer to be just beyond stupid. But nerf either of those things, then we have a fine hero. I don't even think his fire rate's that bad. I think his fire rate was bad. I think his fire rate's a lot more reasonable now. But removing 25 HP with McCree just completely removes his niche. Yeah, exactly. Fan the hammer is really annoying. Hey, Refid, good to see you, mate. But Flashbang is super inconsistent and weird, and Phantom Hammer is busted. But I think I'm all for 225 HP McCree. I'm all for it. I got all my friends' accounts from Silver. What? Wait, as in you played with your friends and got them the plat diamond, or you actually played on your friends' accounts? Because if you played with your friends' accounts, screw you. But I'm gonna assume that you're saying that you were playing with them and then you got to plat diamond, in which case you can't seem to win together because they're boosted. You boosted them. You boosted them like Khaleesi. Maybe you're like a Masters player and you're like you boosted them, and then now they're too heavy for you. This is why whenever people ask me about whether it's duoing or true, like should I duo in ranked? No. Play like, don't tie your improvement to your teammates. On their accounts? Well, why? You're like, I'm getting baited. I think Lucio Zin is really strong because of the constant strong support. Thoughts? I mean, here's the problem with Lucio Zin and Lucio Brig. The low support, the low healing you can play around. The low healing you can play around. Because Brig Zin doesn't have a lot of healing either. But the problem with Lucio Brig and Lucio Zin is the strength of Brig is like enabling her DPS and range support. The strength of Zin is pocketing his DPS and range support. Lucio isn't good at either of those. Lucio doesn't provide range support. Lucio is inflexible. Lucio's ultimate isn't really impactful to a lot of people. Lucio can't pocket his DPS from range and can't contribute. So like what Brig Zin lack in meaningful healing, they make up for with meaningful utility and meaningful healing in the right spots. Lucio doesn't fit that. Lucio can't help your Tracer over here and your Ashe over here. So he's these Brig Lucio Zin compositions are really out of favor. The only Lucio Brig comp that actually makes sense is the hard brawl comps where you play hyper aggressive around your low resources, but you get like high value. But even then, that's inferior to Moira Lucio unquestionably now because Brig is too squishy. And Lucio Zin really only makes sense in a map like Ilios Well, where what your Lucio lacks for in utility with actual healing, he makes up for with utility with boop threat. So if you're not playing a map that has open space but also boop threat like Nepal Sanctum, Ilios Well, then Lucio is just trash with those other healers. They don't make sense together at all. Yep, Lucio Brig in Control Center, right, when she was like 225 HP and had higher Inspire, you could play hard brawl Lucio Brig on a Control Center. Not anymore. So Lucio plus Brig, Lucio plus Zen comps are no longer a thing. New patch, Spilo? Yeah, I saw it. Nothing crazy, to be honest. I'd have to look at it again. The Zarya thing is pretty rough. The Echo and Moira thing is really interesting. I hope it takes Moira out of the meta. I mean, it's a Moira buff and nerf, but I don't know. Any advice for helping practice team decisiveness? Practice team decisiveness, I guess. Like, go in there and be like, guys, we're gonna be very decisive with our planning and just execute and go. Yeah, I have to have like what type of decisiveness? Mid-fight decisiveness? Then you need to practice in having a mid-fight shot caller or somebody that is willing to speak up and take a leadership. Pre-fight decisiveness, have your team know exactly what they're looking for. I mean, I don't know what this is like. It's a really tough question. I don't know what you're looking for here. I think the one thing is here is if you're talking about mid-fight decisiveness, you need to have somebody who's willing and comfortable with speaking up mid-fight and taking charge. For example, with Ex Oblivione, one of the strengths of us we have is white noise. Main thing is really, especially when we're playing Orisa comps, white noise is super like alpha mid-fight, and that's helpful with decisiveness mid-fight. Planning execution decisiveness. I mean, know what you're looking for. Guys, we're going to flux. Okay. Well, when? What? What are you looking for? So making them give more details might encourage them to actually use it at the proper time. Because I see this all the time. Guys, they have trance, rally. We have, let's just look for Bob and then follow up with rally after that. Okay. When? Where? What are we doing? Right. And actually going, okay, well, I'm going to Bob them as soon as they walk through the choke. Then there you go. There's your decisiveness. But that's done before the even team. But if you just say, we're going to Bob, okay, when? Right? When can we count on that actually happening? Make the players like actually hustle more with their plans. That's helpful. Hopefully that's helpful. When will he get a haircut? I don't know. Probably like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, something like that.